Hello, my name is Britt Salveson. I'm the curator of photography and prints and drawings at LACMA. I'm so pleased to welcome you to a presentation about the Théâtre Optique, which is on view in conjunction with our exhibition City of Cinema, Paris, 1850 to 1907, on view through July 10th, 2022. During this presentation, I'll be joined by my two co-curators, Leah Lembeck, curator at LACMA, and Vanessa Schwartz, professor at USC, and a guest appearance by Laurent Manoni, curator at the Cinémathèque Française, who was generous enough to share his knowledge at the time of the opening of the exhibition.
Donc Émile Reynaud est un Français, il est né en 1844 et il est le fils d'un graveur. Et sa mère était aquarelliste. Son père aussi était horloger. Donc ça lui a permis très vite de développer des connaissances à la fois artistiques et techniques. Et il devient vite l'élève d'un grand projectionniste qui s'appelait l'abbé Moignot. Et avec lui, il apprend à travailler l'art des projections. Il apprend à faire des projections avec des lanternes magiques. Donc ça, c'est sa formation intellectuelle très importante.
Given his background with both the fine arts and technology and engineering, Reynaud was very active as an inventor and seeking to produce domestic-scale optical toys that could be patented and sold in mass production. The most successful of these was patented in 1877, and he called it the Praxinoscope Theatre. That word roughly translates to action viewer from Greek roots. You can see this example was designed to be contained within a box that could then be opened on a tabletop, a candle lit to provide light, and strips of images placed around a drum that was then spun, and these cartoon-like figures would appear to be in smooth motion based on the principles of the persistence of vision. And the strips had a variety of different kinds of loops, but as you can imagine, they couldn't really tell a full story because it was just a sort of second at a time and repetitive motion. About 10 years later, Reynaud sought to expand the possibilities of his praxinoscope invention, producing projecting models that would allow more than one person easily to look at the image at a time. Again, still thinking about domestic use, and still only able to achieve kind of a split-second sort of effect. That led to a much more ambitious version that he conceived for stage performance, and that's what we're seeing in our LACMA exhibition. That was patented in 1888, and Reynaud wasn't getting a lot of traction with this invention until he persuaded his friend Gaston Tissandier, who was an influential publisher of a popular journal called La Nature, to publish an article about this invention, which he called the Théâtre Optique, with these beautiful wood-engraved illustrations that kind of evoked the magic and the possibility of this device, which ultimately would be the first device by which moving pictures could be projected for a live audience.
Alors le théâtre optique, c'est une machine assez complexe qui nécessite beaucoup de précision. C'est une sorte de grand théâtre baroque, optique, un peu comme il en existait au XVIIe siècle avec au temps du père Kircher. Il emploie des bandes peintes à la main. Donc en général, c'est un très long film peint à la main, entièrement peint à la main. Hauteur d'une cabine, par exemple, mesure 45 mètres, ce qui est quand même très long, et comporte 636 images peintes une à une sur une matière qui s'appelle de la gélatine, qui est recouverte de gomme lac, une espèce de vernis. Donc c'est une matière très fragile, qui va poser d'ailleurs beaucoup de problèmes à Émile Reynaud. Donc cette bande, elle est entraînée par deux dévidoirs qu'il faut actionner à la main. C'est un spectacle vivant. Le film, les images défilent comme on veut. Et parfois, Émile Reynaud revenait en arrière, faisait des petits effets extraordinaires. Et cette bande, enfin l'obturation de ces images, se fait grâce à un système que Reynaud a conçu, grâce à ce qu'on appelle la compensation optique. C'est un grand miroir, une grande série de miroirs au centre. Il y a 36 miroirs qui sont montés en prisme. Et le fait qu'ils soient montés en prisme permet d'obturer chaque image. mais c'est une obturation pas du tout comme au cinéma, c'est une obturation visuelle qui est tout à fait étonnante. On a un sentiment de miroitement qui est très élégant et très beau. Donc il faut à la fois conduire le film à la bonne vitesse, revenir en arrière, faire des effets, mais aussi, ce qui est beaucoup plus complexe, il faut s'interrompre de temps en temps pour régler un miroir mobile qui permet de placer les petits personnages sur l'écran. Le décor est toujours projeté par une lanterne, ça on n'y touche pas, mais il faut déplacer les personnages sur l'écran. Si bien que même aujourd'hui, travailler avec le théâtre optique nécessite une vraie dextérité. C'est très compliqué de l'actionner. Il faut être très précis et très prudent.
The Théâtre Optique and its image sequences, the pantomime lumineuse, were accompanied by live music that was composed by Gaston Paulin. Reynaud also, when he was performing, added some other sound effects like noises and drum sounds and such. Paulin would play live on a piano as Reynaud operated the film. They would both be watching the action on screen and coordinating to each other and to the cues in the film. And you can see on this excerpt of the sheet music, there are cues built in for, say, the entry of the Harlequin or his declaration of love. So, in fact, this is the first movie soundtrack. The Théâtre Optique was very successful for a number of years, but it was ultimately eclipsed by other moving image technologies, and the apparatus itself and the films that Reynaud made for it met a rather sad end.
En 1913, il a accompli un geste irréparable. Il a détruit son théâtre optique, c'est-à-dire que le théâtre optique d'Émile Reynaud a disparu. On ne le reverra jamais. Il a détruit aussi la majorité de ses films, mais il en a gardé 2, un pour chacun de ses enfants. Il a gardé Autour d'une cabine et Pauvre Pierrot. C'est tout ce qui nous reste du théâtre optique.
Hello, my name is Leah Lembeck. I'm the department head of European Painting and Sculpture and American Art at LACMA.
As we heard, the Théâtre Optique suffered a tragic fate. The apparatus in our exhibition is therefore a replica, recreated from Reynaud's original patents, filed in 1888. The replica was first made for the Cinémathèque Française in 1972, and it was last performed in Europe over 10 years ago. The inclusion of the Théâtre Optique in our exhibition marks the first time it has been on view and performed in the United States, and we will be running it for our visitors on the weekends during the run of our exhibition. Before bringing it to Los Angeles, however, the complicated apparatus required conservation to assure its proper projection, and we were pleased to contribute to its restoration. The 2 surviving strips also needed to be reconstituted, as the originals were far too fragile to run through the machine. Pauvre Pierrot and Autour d'une cabine were carefully recreated by director and animator Julien Papet, who took a photograph of each original frame, painstakingly retouched the missing and faded colors to match the original strip, and linked them together as a strip to use for projection. The characters are on a black background, and each frame has a different movement, with the background a still that is projected onto a screen from a magic lantern. It is through the interest and care of those living nearly 100 years later that we present the Théâtre Optique for audiences today.
J'ai compris que c'était vraiment un art vivant. Ça n'a pas de rapport avec le cinéma d'aujourd'hui. Ça a peut-être un rapport avec le cinéma des débuts au temps du cinéma forain, par exemple, où là c'était effectivement un spectacle hybride, un spectacle vivant avec des effets de surprise. Et ce qui est très important, c'est qu'Émile Reynaud pouvait changer le rythme de son spectacle et le feeling de son spectacle selon l'assistance. Si l'assistance était réceptive, il est clair qu'il devait faire d'autres effets. Et il pouvait ainsi faire des projections avec Autour d'une cabine qui pouvaient durer 20 minutes s'il voulait. Ou bien ça pouvait être beaucoup plus court. Il pouvait vraiment faire ce qu'il voulait. Et je pense qu'il a pris certainement beaucoup de plaisir à faire ça au début, mais après il est devenu esclave de sa propre technique en fait.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Schwartz. I direct the Visual Studies Research Institute at the University of Southern California, and I've been a part of the curatorial team here at LACMA working on this exhibition. The pantomime lumineuse first appeared in Paris at the Musée Grévin, which was a wax museum and one of the city's premier attractions. The Wax Museum opened in 1882 on the busy Grand Boulevard, not far from places such as the Opéra, cafes, and other theaters. The Wax Museum aspired to realistically represent and three-dimensionalize this glittering modern culture that newspapers also described and had begun to illustrate. But on top of the wax tableau that they also offered a variety of spectacles inside. Magic shows, and starting in 1892, Émile Reynaud's Théâtre Optique. Reynaud's invention combined the century-long interest in synthesized motion with the more recent emphasis on realist display oriented to a wide viewing public. Projected moving images on a single band were born, and audiences flooded the Wax Museum to see them. The museum was frustrated by the slow pace by which Reynaud produced his shows, which were entirely hand-drawn and painted. Reynaud was furloughed and replaced by a full-time magician and sent to make more films. But in the meantime, Edison's kinetoscope landed in Paris. In the summer of 1894, Parisians could line up to look into a box that stood over 5 feet tall, to which animated photographs on a 30-second loop played. The Musée Grévin showed no interest in buying what they considered a deficient object in two ways. It had no story and no shared audience experience. Instead, the museum asked Reynaud to use photographic images in the new reels that he was making. They even introduced him to Georges Domeny, who was Étienne Jules Maret's former assistant. Maret was well known for work on motion photography, and that was well established already in scientific circles. But Domeny really didn't have the time, and Reynaud really lacked the enthusiasm for using photographs. It was only after the debut of the Lumière brothers' cinématographe, which, by the way, the head of the Musée Grévin, Gabriel Thomas, was in attendance at the Salon Indien in December of 1895, and it was only subsequent to the public viewings of the cinématographe that Reynaud was moved to innovate. He offered the Musée Grévin a new object, a photo peinture animée, and he hired the famous circus clowns Foutit and Chocolat to perform a comical scene that they titled William Tell, in which Foutit drenches Chocolat with a water pistol. These films have not survived. After 1896, many machines offered versions of what the Lumière brothers had offered, and the Musée Grévin adopted the system pioneered by Léon Gaumont, and this was added to Reynaud's shows. In early 1899, after 12,800 shows, the museum terminated Reynaud's contract. At the same time, the pantomime lumineuse gave way to the journal lumineux, or the lighted newspaper, which focused on films that were the period equivalent of what we think of as newsreels, which matched the Wax Museum's vision of itself as a three-dimensional newspaper.
What we think of as cinema, therefore, was actually born as animated moving pictures, and we have Émile Reynaud and his Théâtre Optique to thank for that.